Hey, what's going on, guys? Jimmy here again with One Road. Today we're going to be tackling an issue that I have already tried to tackle, and that issue actually came back. So that issue had to do with the clunky steering that I have in my 2003 Chevy Suburban. The last time I tried to fix it, there was a plastic intermediate steering bearing, and from all the research I was doing, that most likely was the problem. However, the other part of the problem was the actual intermediate steering shaft, and I chose not to replace that, to just replace the bearing and see if that took care of it. And it actually did. It worked for all of like 3 or 4 weeks. Then I kind of slowly started feeling it coming back, and before long, it was totally clunking, probably as bad or worse than it was before. So my only other option is to replace the actual intermediate steering shaft. Now, the company Dorman actually makes a new and improved version of that steering shaft that came in these trucks. And here it is. This is the new and improved version of the steering shaft that came in all of these Suburbans, Tahoes, Yukons, Silverados, and Sierras. According to Dorman, this fixes the flaws in the original design from GM. Now, if you take a look here in my engine bay, you'll see that this part right here is the actual intermediate steering shaft. There's one bolt right here, and there's one bolt on the inside of the cab. Now, if you watched the last video I did on this when I fixed the intermediate steering bearing, one of the first things that I had to do was to lock off the steering wheel so that when you disconnect it, it doesn't just free spin and break all the mechanisms inside of the steering wheel. You can do that a couple of ways. The way that I choose to do it is by using the seat belt. So first thing you're gonna wanna do is take out your seat belt. Okay, pull it out. Go through the bottom here and make sure that actually you can click it in. Okay, so that's pretty good, right? You probably don't need to do any more than that. My seat was actually adjusted correctly this time. Last time I had to move my seat forward enough to be able to click it in and then move my seat back to tighten it so that the steering wheel wouldn't move. This is pretty much as you need. If you need to, you can move the seat back just a little to get some more tension on there, but if you just go ahead and pull, you're good. And you just don't want your steering wheel to be able to move. That's all you need to do. All right, guys, I just wanted to show you, Dorman actually gives a set of installation notes and instructions somewhat, and it actually is pretty cool. It says, this new Dorman steering shaft is an upgraded unit designed as an improvement to the failure-prone original. Please take note of the following. This is the upper intermediate steering shaft. This is a shaft that passes through the firewall, not the shaft that attaches to the steering gearbox. Prior to removing the failed shaft, check for excessive wear in the lower steering column bearing. Refer to GMTSB 00 blah 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 for inspection procedures. This bearing is a common failure item that can mimic a failed shaft. Dorman part number 905512 covers many GM applications. Torque wrench required. I have them, so that's good. Mounting bolts must be torqued to 37 foot-pounds. Failure to torque bolts to this torque spec may result in excessive steering play and or noisy operation. If the new shaft does not fit the lower shaft, inspect the lower shaft for damage from previous over-tightening. Repair or replace the lower shaft as needed. Now, sorry about reading all that, but I just thought that was really interesting that they include all that information in there, and maybe that was interesting to some of you. Okay, guys, I just wanted to show you the amount of play that I can see here and here in my intermediate steering shaft, which is again right here. So I'm going to shake this thing. I'm not sure if you could see that because the camera was shaking so much when I was wiggling the steering shaft, but hopefully you could hear it. And that, I think, is the problem that I'm having. Hopefully you can see my wrench here that is leading up to the bolt that you have to take out on the intermediate steering shaft union there. It is a 15 millimeter. That is the bolt that connects the intermediate shaft with the upper steering shaft. You don't need a ratchet, you just need your 15 millimeter box end. And the other side of that nut is attached. This part of the nut is actually attached to this piece, so you're not going to have to really touch that. You just essentially loosen this nut and slowly but surely, it'll come off. And there we go. And this piece comes out just like that, and you can see what I was talking about there. And what happens is you can see the intermediate steering shaft actually pushes out of there just like that. All right, now we're back in the engine compartment here, and this is the bolt that we have to take out, and we do have a nut and a bolt. Both are 15 millimeters, so now I think on this side we can use a wrench and a ratchet. So I got the other side of this off. I'm gonna go ahead and pull this bolt out, and now my intermediate steering shaft should be able to wiggle out of that hole, hopefully. I do want to point out that you can see this boot here. I took that off, and there's 3 little nuts on here that are very easy to get off. There's one here, one down here, and one directly on the bottom on the other side. The reason why I took this boot off is because I don't know if I'm gonna be able to slide this steering shaft up through the firewall to get it out. I feel like I'm gonna have to pull it this way, and I think the big knuckle on the end there is gonna prevent it from going through the boot. So I'm thinking I'm just gonna take this whole thing out, slide the boot on the new steering shaft, and then put the new steering shaft in. I was able to get this thing pulled out, and the way I did it was just by grabbing it, shaking it back and forth, but also giving it a lot of pressure towards the firewall, and eventually it just started wiggling and came out. And there you can see it. Here it is, guys. The intermediate steering shaft. Look at that. All right, you can see the whole boot came out with it. I think this was a good option to remove this thing, as the boot is very easy to get out too. So I would do it this way rather than wanting to pull that thing through the firewall. There is just no room in there. I'm not sure what the problem is on these. Apparently they are fail prone. Here is the old one, and here is the new one from Dorman. This is the original piece, and let me just show you this thing. So I'm trying to figure out what's the fail point, what's the problem here, and the only thing that I could see is this shaft here. You can see can you guys see that grease? A lot of people, I guess what they do is they just somehow repack this thing with grease, and that takes care of the problem. I didn't want to do that. I just wanted to fix it once and for all. And when I grab this thing and shake it, I can feel a little bit of play in there, and I think that's what we're feeling in the steering wheel. It could be this coupled with the steering bearing also, but this I have play. Now this shaft, you can see how thick it is. I mean, it seems like it would do the job correctly, and right, but when you actually look at this Dorman unit, it is much beefier, much thicker, and let me show you the joint here. This joint, you can see, has a notch in it. So in terms of this being an upgrade, I absolutely see that. The shaft itself, everything, it just seems a lot more strong and beefy, and there is not an ounce of play, nothing, not even a hair of play in here. All right, guys, so to get this boot on, it should be fairly straightforward. Just slide it through here. Yep, and that's all it takes. That's the new unit that I'm gonna be installing right now. I have been pulling and yanking and pushing on this shaft for probably the last 30 plus minutes, and boy, is this a tight fit. I don't know if you can see down on the side. Yeah, you can see the little bit that I need to go. It is unbelievably hard to get this thing down there. And at this point, I'm not sure that it's even moving anymore. So I'm gonna have to figure something else out. Whew! All right, guys. Would you believe, guys, it took me 2 hours to get that intermediate shaft into the lower shaft? That thing is such a tight fit, it was unbelievable. Just to get it started was insane, and then the rest of the way was absolutely crazy. Guys, my mind is blown right now how hard that was. I tried so many different things, from grabbing it with a pair of channel locks and hitting it with a hammer, to just grabbing onto it with my hand, screaming and yanking and rattling and pushing and pulling, and oh my gosh. I was also able to get the other side in, and that went in no problem at all. But man, I feel for you. If you're watching this video because you have to do this to your truck, I hope I never have to do that again. That's how bad it was. I'm gonna go ahead and take this thing on a drive. I'm in the car, it's running. I just started it for the day, first time today. So we are gonna go on a test drive. We are gonna see if we just fixed the problem. And I really hope we did, because I don't know if I can go through that again. I think I'd sell the car before I do that again. I certainly do not feel any clunking at all, not one bit. So usually when I feel that clunking, it's over these light bumps. It's not when I hit a huge bump, it's really the small stuff. And somehow, some way, that vibration gets transferred up through the steering wheel, and of course it makes you kind of second guess your whole vehicle. I mean, it makes it feel like the tire's about to fall off. Wow, I'm hitting little bumps and I don't feel a thing. Solid. Thank you, Lord. Ooh, that was a big bump and I did not feel a thing. Another big bump. Wow. Is it fixed? I think it's fixed, guys. Well guys, I want to thank you for watching this video and coming along with me as I fixed this intermediate steering shaft. With just 2 bolts, it seems like it would have been such a simple fix, but the problem is the bottom of that intermediate shaft going into the lower shaft is a nightmare. If you think you can handle that, which I'm sure you can if I can, then by all means check the description below this video for the link to the Dorman intermediate steering shaft that I used for my truck. Thanks for watching again. Please hit the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button, and also the little bell icon next to the subscribe button. That bell icon lets you know when I upload new videos. As always, there's more information at oneroadgarage.com. I'm also on Instagram at oneroadgarage. I'll put links to all that stuff down in the description below. All right guys, I'll see you in the next video. Peace out.